À l'ordre, s'il vous plaît, Madame la...
Order, please, Madam Secretary.
Swear in the witness, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have asked that to make a solemn affirmation. So, do you solemnly affirm that the evidence to be given to you by you to the Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Please use your mic, please, so we can hear you. Turn on your mic. So, what?
I affirm.
Please state your name for the record.
Sukhdev Singh Dhillon.
Thank you. For the record, the witness has been sworn in. Mr. Chairman, we will now proceed with Phase 1 for Item 2 on the agenda, which is the presentation by Saltspring Island Radio Corp. Mr. Dhillon, you may begin your presentation, and you have 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Laz, Vice Chairman Tom Bentefantis, and Peter Menzies, Vice Chairman of Telecommunication, and the Commission staff. I am Sukhdev Singh Dhillon, owner of Saltspring Island Radio Corporation and Satnam Media Group, and the licensee of CFSI FM. I am here at your request to respond to the Commission's concerns with compliances for CFSI FM. The Commission approved the acquisition of the license by my company, Satnam Media Group, on January 21st, 2013. I knew going into this venture that there would be difficulties. The station was not operating in a positive manner on several fronts. As the Commission noted in its approval of the transfer of CFSI FM, had been operating in a negative financial situation for some time. This is one of the reasons the former owner wished to relinquish the license. One of the other issues mentioned in the approval was non-compliance with regards to CCD payments and financial concerns for several years. This speaks to self-admitted lack of oversight. It is this point of miss, or perhaps better described as undermanagement, that has caused much of the problem we are facing today. Due diligence told me about the financial problem, which I accepted and believed that implementing more professional operating and sales standards would improve that situation. That said, I did underestimate the chaos that existed at the operational level. Over the course of several years, technical upgrades for the signal and ultimately the addition of the repeater of Mount Bruce were granted to improve the coverage of the entire population of the island, but it did not. I am requesting that I be allowed to replace the 102.1 FM with an AM repeater. Again, in acquiring the station, I did not think that all the staff, clients, and audience would embrace the new owner, let alone one from off the island, with open arms and great enthusiasm. What I did not anticipate was the immensity of the blowback from the original core of the station. Given the change in ownership, there is bound to be some resentment and a feeling of exclusion by those close to the former owner of the station, especially as they were not financially invested. Their attitude appears to be that I have stolen their station away through a closed-door process. As you know, the transaction took place following the Commission's public rules and procedures. The station staff, disappointed over the sale of CFSI, appears to have been transferred to the new ownership. This has created an air of bad will based on old relationships. At a point, I did suggest to this group that if they felt they had a manifested destiny to own and operate the station, I would consider an offer. That said, I'm requesting that the share transfer to Herman Gale be approved. The station can benefit from the much needed funds. The new operation team will be introduced in June. The management team is revitalized, and I can say that I feel confident that the day-to-day management of the station has the goals of the community and the station prioritized. This team will be headed by Bob Simpson. I trust this addresses your concern and ask the Commission to exclude the suspension and revocation of the license of CFSI FM in the decision and renew the license and approve the share transfer application. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have. And I also like to mention that on the phone we have Herman Gale and Dave Gordon, the ex-manager of CFSI.
Thank you. Vice Chair Broadcasting will start us off.
Good morning, Mr. Dhillon. Nice to see you again, although it would have been nice under different circumstances. We saw each other about 15 months ago
Very true.
It was a rather disagreeable experience for me. I'm sure it was for you as well. Unfortunately, we're back. Just to begin with your presentation of the day, sir, as regards the AM repeater, have you applied?
We are planning to. We have been discussing with the engineers, and we are sourcing the land, and we have the frequency in mind.
Okay, so that application, you can't just present it today.
Exactly.
There's a process, and
yes,
we'll deal with that in good time. As regards Mr. Simpson, do you have an employment contract with Mr. Simpson?
We are working on that right now.
Okay, so he has not as yet been hired?
Not right now, but he was supposed to be here, but he's working at another radio station right now, and his programming director had resigned, so he could not make it today.
Okay. Do you have some kind of formal commitment on behalf of Mr. Simpson that he will undertake to run your station?
I have, yes.
What do you have, sir?
I have that he's willing to consider running the radio station and working out a contract.
And you have that in writing?
Yes.
Is that an affidavit? Is that something that...
It's an email from him outlining the understanding we have.
Okay, and you'll make that available?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Gill, let's begin with apparent non-compliance issues that date back to the mandatory order you signed 15 months, almost a year ago.
A year ago, yes.
You recall?
Yes.
And do you recall a lot of those issues? And a lot of those issues, you reiterated them this morning?
Yes.
As regards the staff that was there at the time and the bad blood that existed between you and the staff members. And you had assured this commission at the time that that would be settled and that was no longer an issue and that you'd taken the necessary measures. And yet here you are 15 months later with the exact same excuse to justify the non-compliance, sir.
Well, as we will go through the phase 3, I will prove that it did not end, it continued on. Same with the person that I hired to manage my radio station, Radha.
Yeah.
Her name is Leslie Fournier. And if I will prove through emails that, a year back and until today, this has continued.
No, I understand, but you assured the commission at the time, this is 15 months ago, and I could go back. I don't want to go through the transcripts from that. As I said, it wasn't fun, and there's no sense in going back and doing things that weren't fun in the past. But if you will, we can. But that was to no longer be an issue going forward. You had settled that issue after taking possession of the station in January 2013.
Well, the issue, I thought it was settled. It was not.
Okay.
And I have documents to prove that.
Okay. So let's start with program logs. Okay.
Yes.
Now, you, under the mandatory order, required you to keep a program log. That log should contain very basic information, the date, the call letters, the location, the frequency of the licensee station, the time at which each station identification announcement is made. As regards each program, broadcast, the title and brief description, the number of the relevant content categories, the time, the beginning and end of each program, the scheduling, as it regards Canadian and non-Canadian programming. Very basic fundamental issues and conditions that were agreed to during our last show cause hearing 15 months ago. And again, in your response to these issues, by writing, you talk about limited resources and poor staffing, and it seems that there seems to be a tendency to blame others. Would you please explain to the Commission what went wrong as regards these issues of non-compliance?
We did file our quarterly report with all the things that you had mentioned.
Yes.
And we got a letter back from the Commission that they were satisfied with the content and the logs.
Okay. We're going to get to the quarterly reports in just a moment, sir. Do you currently have a manager of the station?
At this time, no, they all quit last month, end of last month.
They all quit?
Yes.
How many of them were there?
There were 4 people there.
4 people. Okay. And who's managing the station now?
Anita Mehta.
Anita Mehta.
She's a temporary until Mr. Simpson and his team takes over.
Does she have any broadcasting experience or regulatory experience?
No, I have, regarding the programming, logs and everything, I have Tony Vieira, who manages the logs and everything. He has broadcasting experience.
Okay. And what's the responsibility of the announcing staff?
Pardon me?
The responsibility of the announcing staff, the on-air staff, what is their responsibility as regards these commitments you made and most broadcasters have made?
During the last 1 year?
Well, let's look at the last 15 months then.
Yes, we had live programming in the morning, afternoon, and in the evenings.
No, but has anyone trained the on-air staff and explained to them? I think that's your responsibility.
Yes, I did.
Right?
Yes, we did. And they were
explain to
following
them that they had to respect all these conditions as regards program logs and maintaining the logs?
Yes, we did. And Radha was supposed to look after to make sure everything was in compliance. And that was her duty to do that. And on a regular basis, I was informed that she was doing that.
Okay. And who reviewed the submission of the program logs that were submitted to the Commission?
Andrew Forsyth was supposed to be doing that, and he did it for a couple of months. And then, even for this hearing, I paid him over $17,000 to file my application, and he was all fully paid. I don't know why that he decided not to represent me today.
Was he also paid to review the submission of the program logs?
Yes, I paid him $1,500 per submission.
And you have receipts to that effect, sir?
Yes.
You do?
Yes. I paid him $3,000 for 2 submissions.
Position to deposit any receipts you have to that effect today? Do you have them with you?
I don't have it with me. I can, within the next 24 hours, I can provide them.
Okay. Now, yes,
That's
Mr. Chairman.
an undertaking.
Undertaking, yes.
Okay, so by 10:30 tomorrow morning?
I will be flying back, and by end of tomorrow day, I will provide.
So by 5 o'clock
Yes.
Ottawa time tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. So there's also the question of the certification of the program logs. You undertook, by virtue of this mandatory order, to make sure that their program logs are machine-readable record of all the days of broadcasting with a certificate by or on behalf of the licensee attesting to the accuracy of its contents. The Commission has not received that certificate of accuracy. Is that certificate anywhere to be found? And why have we not as yet received it?
When was that due? Excuse me, please.
I guess that was Mr. Forsyth's responsibility?
Yes.
Or you don't know?
We had forwarded him the last logs that were supposed to be sent to the Commission.
Yeah.
And I will consult with him tomorrow and find out what happened to that.
So you do not know, you cannot tell us today why you did not include a document attesting to the accuracy of the program logs?
Well, like I said, we did submit our quarterly report and those to the Commission, and we have acknowledged that they have received them.
Okay. There is also a question of station self-assessment reports.
Yeah, we
Does that ring any bells?
Yes, we did file those.
You did file those. Yeah. Would it be possible that there were huge errors in the filing of those self-assessment reports?
I believe the assessment that we got back from the Commission, they were quite satisfied with it.
Well, let me
and
refresh
we have
your
a copy of that.
Let me refresh your memory. You, the Commission asked that you provide a list of musical selections in order in which they are broadcast by licensee during that period. It includes the title, performer, and each musical selection and a legend that identifies the following. 1, any Canadian musical selection, any hits, any instrumental selection, any Cat 3 musical selection, the language of the musical selection, save for the instrumentals. And it's clear in our documentation, sir, that many musical selections were not properly identified as Canadian. No hits were identified in the program logs or music lists submitted. Some instrumental pieces were not properly identified. Some musical selections were improperly categorized. And the list goes on and on. Does that help you better understand what the requirements were? And would you be in a position to explain to us why they weren't met?
Okay, there's a couple of...
Let me ask you a simple question.
Yes.
What are your current procedures regarding self-assessment reports and music lists?
We check to make sure we play enough Canadian content, and all the musical logs, artists, categories are logged, and they are being logged right now.
They are?
Yes.
Okay, and who prepares these?
Tony Vieira.
Tony?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes, Vieria.
And you have a contract of employment with Mr. Vieira?
Yes. What happens is, since Radha left the station, we have changed the automation system to make sure, because I was wanting to change the automation system for the last almost 8 months. And I asked Radha, I said, this is a new automation system, which has all the categories established that we need to provide to CRTC, so it's easier to take out the reports and hand them over. But she said, that it's very hard for her to operate that system, and she continued on using the old system. So then when she left, we changed over to the new system. Now it's very easy to provide the logs as they're required right away.
And the self-assessment reports as well?
Yes.
And when did you switch over to this new system, sir?
We switched over first week of April.
2015?
Yes.
The self-assessment reports, sir, did you oversee the process?
Yes, they always emailed me first.
Yes.
And I went through them before we sent to the commission, and we went. I had Andrew look over them first, and he make sure everything's good. Then he submits them.
Okay. In your billing system with Mr. Forsyth, do you have an itemized billing as to what he did or did not do for you, sir?
Well, for 2 annual reports, he charged me $15,000 plus
I know, but
taxes.
do you have some kind of detail as to what was included in that $15,000 bill? Was it his responsibility? Let's get to self-assessment reports. Was it his responsibility to conduct the final review?
Yes.
It was.
He was charging me $1,500
For that?
For that, yes.
Yeah, and that was concluded. And do you have some kind of mandate that you offered him? Is there something in writing? Is there something?
There's something in writing, of email
What
I can
is that?
forward. Do
you have a copy of that, sir?
I can provide you by tomorrow, yes.
Notwithstanding all that, sir, you understand the ultimate responsibility to rest with you?
Yes.
There was also an issue 15 months prior and before that with getting in touch with you, sir. And you had agreed to set up a phone line. You had agreed to be more present at the radio station. First of all, as regards the phone line to make it easier for the Commission and others to contact you, have you put in place a phone line at the Saltspring Islands, on Saltspring Islands for yourself?
Yes, we have 2 lines there, one studio line and one office line.
Okay. And when were those installed?
Right after we had discussed, that was a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And if somebody leaves a voice message, I get an email right away.
Okay. And equally there, you must have bills for those installations?
Yes.
And did you come with those bills today?
These are regular phone bills from Shaw.
I understand. But you have access to those bills?
Yes.
Okay. And would you be able to provide us with that
Yes.
before the end of day tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of hiring a new station manager, you had hired, but that was another one of your undertakings. You had hired Madame, who had you hired at the time, sir? Don't want to put words in your mouth.
A year ago?
Yes.
That was Dan Miller.
Dan Miller?
Yes.
Okay. And he was hired when?
He was hired in February last year.
February 2014?
Yes.
Okay. And how long was he employed at the station for you?
Approximately 3 months.
3 months. And why is he no longer employed there, sir?
excuse me, I checked his 3 months progress, and I did not like the way everything was being handled. So then Radha said I can step in and make sure everything is properly done, and then she said I will manage that position. Mm-hmm. So I hired Radha.
And she is still employed by you, sir?
She was until end of March.
Until March. So from June until March, roughly?
Yes.
June 2014 to March 2015?
Yes.
Okay. And she is no longer employed by you at the station?
No.
And is there a reason why?
Well, every time we had a report to do, she would come out with an email to me and say, I'm resigning. That was in June. Then in July, I said, okay, I'm going to talk to Bob Simpson and bring him aboard.
Right.
And then she said, I'm also going to resign. If, bringing Bob in, I'm not going to work with him. I have emails to prove that. And then I was talking to some of my staff, and she got very upset. She goes, I have emails to prove that also. Why did you talk to Bill Nash? I said, he's a salesperson. He's the only one who does any sales on the station. He goes, well, we're going to tell Bob not to talk to you, and if he wants to work at the station. And then she fired him. And I have emails to prove all that.
Okay. And you, did you fire her in March 2015, or did she leave?
I was going to, but then she said, I'm resigning.
Okay.
I said, that's fine, I accept your resignation.
And before that, as of June, when she first started threatening to resign almost from day one, did you think about relieving her of her functions or duties at that time?
Yes, I've been looking for bringing in someone who's capable of managing the station. And I've been talking to Bob since July and June last year. And then finally Bob, agreed to come on a full-time basis. Okay. And to work out a contract with him. And he will start then.
You had also committed to spend a lot more time at the station yourself, sir.
Yes.
Because prior to January 2014, you insisted that it was the fault of others, and you weren't there often enough, and you understood that, and you'd be spending more time there and taking more responsibilities on your shoulders yourself.
Right.
Okay. Can you speak to the Commission as to what kind of time and how often you were at the station physically?
As it was required, I would go there, since, Radha and all the people who were programming in the morning, afternoon, and evening, they were doing a good job programming. And, I didn't see a need to go there every week. Then I tried to go there once.
You did not see a need to go there every week?
Because everything was going fine.
Right. You had committed to being involved in the day-to-day operations, sir.
Yes, I had a audio feed coming to my office in Surrey, where I was monitoring it and listening to it and recording it on a regular basis to make sure that everything is up and running.
Okay, and you had also committed...
And there was an incident when the computer went off. I was the first person to find out because I got an alarm on that feed, and then I called Radha. I said, Radha, the station is off the air. Please fix it right away. Okay. And it was handled.
Okay. And you had also committed to personally ensure that the logger tapes would be in good order, the program logs, the music lists, and all other information that I mentioned earlier, that you would be personally responsible to make sure that that would run, that you would be respectful of the conditions that were imposed yourself.
Yes. When we did the first report and we got back the results, and they were good results from the CRTC Commission, and then I thought, okay, Radha is doing a good job to continue on.
When did you receive that, sir? What report are you referring to?
That was I believe, in March last year.
March of 2014?
I have a copy I can present,
You have that with you?
Not right now, but I do have it. I can email it or forward to the Commission tomorrow.
But to your recollection, March 2014, you received a document from the Commission that you were doing a great job? And everything was in order?
I could be wrong on the month, but I did receive it, and I did review it, and we were in compliance on every direction.
Okay, so if it wasn't March, it was April of 2014?
Could be.
Okay, and have you received any other documentation from the Commission since then?
Not regarding the RAP report.
Have you received anything else from the Commission as it regards logger tapes, certification, categorization of programming, and any other commitments you made during the mandatory order?
I don't recall right now.
You haven't received anything else to your recollection?
No.
Okay. To move on past the mandatory order, sir, you understand the importance of annual returns?
Yes, we filed them on time.
Yeah, I know I asked you this question a year and a half ago, but how long have you been in the radio business, sir?
Since 2007, because that's my first purchase in Wetaskiwin, Alberta.
Okay. Okay. Great. So annual returns. You understand that you have to file annual returns?
Yes, since I took over this radio station, I have filed all my returns on time.
Do you understand when you took over the station that you were also responsible for any responsibilities and obligations prior to your acquiring of the station? Did you understand that at the time?
Yes, he did not file on time.
Yeah.
And when I took over and I asked him for the copies of the annual returns, then he provided me.
Yeah. And did you file those returns, sir?
Yes.
For 2010, 2011?
2010, he filed them. I took over in 2013, and I filed 2000.
I understand you took over in 2013, but you also, when you took over, you were made aware of the fact that the 2010, 2011, 2012 annual reports had not been submitted. Did you not realize that?
Yeah, he submitted them after I bought the station. He filed it.
And do you have some kind of evidence of that filing, sir?
Yes.
You do?
He did provide me copies that he filed.
And you'll provide that before end of
Yes.
day tomorrow? Now, as for the transfer of ownership, you also understand that there was a shortfall in CCD contributions
Yes.
when you bought the station,
Yes.
and you had committed to pay that shortfall?
There was a commission said there was $5,500, and he showed me a proof of $500 plus $5,000 to adding up to $5,500. That shortfall.
And the commission has not expressed to you the fact that those payments have not been received, that there's a shortfall of $500 on that $5,500 payment? You're not aware of the fact that you still owe $500 on that?
If there is $500 that's due, I will make sure it's paid. Because I do have a proof of the $5,000 that he paid, that the commission asked.
Did you have a chance prior to today to show that to the commission staff, sir? That the $5,000 were paid?
Yes, I emailed it to them. A couple
You
of years
emailed it to
back.
them?
To the commission.
When was that, sir?
That was during the purchase, 2013.
Okay.
I sent them a bank draft copy that Mr. Brooks paid.
Who made that payment?
Mr. Brooks,
The previous owner.
yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dhillon, there was also a question of CCD contributions above and beyond.
Yes, there
I'm
were.
not sure if you're familiar with that. And that was $2,500 for the year 2011-12, $2,500 for the year 2012-13, and $2,500 for the year 2013-14.
Yes,
Makes a total of $7,500.
yes.
Have you made those payments?
Not yet. We will pay within the next 90 days. Because, as I said earlier, the station hasn't made any money in the last 2.5, 3 years. And it was a difficult situation, but we will pay.
You were aware of these payments that were required when you bought the station?
Okay, excuse me. There's regarding 2011 and 12.
Yes.
Those payments were made. That's the $5,000.
Sir, No, they have not been made.
They have not been?
No, no.
Because Mr. Brooke provided me an email, a proof of $5,000 payable to the commission.
Okay. And,
I
and
can forward
and
that tomorrow.
And that includes 2013-14?
Yes, $2,500 each month, each year.
But that you were the proprietor. You took possession in January 2013.
Right.
Right. So Mr. Brooks paid for 2012-13, and he also paid for 2013-14?
No, 2011 and 12 he paid.
Okay. And 2013 and 14 you paid?
No, I have not paid that.
Okay. Why not, sir? Okay. There's also a basic CCD contribution that has not been paid for 11-12 and 12-13. There's another $1,000 there.
How much?
$1,000 in total.
Okay, whatever amount is outstanding, within the next 30 days I will pay the whole amount. That's no problem. Because I wasn't aware that $1,000 was still overdue.
You're not aware of those payments that are outstanding? That there's a total of $9,000 outstanding?
I will undertake to pay that within the next 30 days.
Who is responsible for making CCD payments, sir?
I am.
Okay. So there's no accountant or anyone else that is responsible for those payments?
Well, now I will be forwarding everything to the accountant, so that way every year, when he will be filing the annual reports before the 30th and doing the CCD payments.
Yeah. Do you recall offering to pay this $9,000 shortfall in 90 days to staff, sir? Do you recall that? Do you recall any correspondence with staff as regards outstanding payments?
That was during the renewal period that we will pay within 90 days. That there was a discussion that regarding the deficiencies report.
Yeah. Yes.
That after the renewal, within 90 days, we will pay all the amount.
Okay. And you will not commit to paying the amount before the renewal?
No, now I said I will pay within 30 days. So no matter renewal or not.
So now you're willing to pay it within 30 days of today?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not 90 days after the renewal, as you mentioned to staff?
That's what I was recommended by the Andrew Forsyth, and that's what I put in. But if I can make it to payment within 30 days, that's no problem.
And that recommendation from Mr. Forsyth came...
We were during the question-answer period regarding the deficiencies.
So that would be prior to April 2015 when he was no longer employed by you?
No, it was this year sometime that the deficiencies came.
Right. So you're aware of the $9,000 outstanding?
I will check my records. If this is the amount, whatever the amount is 10,000 or 9,000 or 7,500.
It's a total of $9,000.
I will make sure it's paid within 30 days.
But do you agree that you owe this amount?
I have to check my records because there's a dispute of $5,000, like you said, has never been paid by Mr. Brooks.
But do you agree that you mentioned to staff that you will be paying the $9,000 within 90 days?
Yes, I do remember that.
You do remember that? Okay.
Yes.
So now you agree that you owe $9,000 and you're willing to pay it within 30 days of today?
Yes.
And not 90 days of your renewal?
If that's...
Is that correct?
Sure, no problem.
No, I don't want to be putting words in your mouth. I'm just repeating what you're saying, sir.
My consultant said, we have to pay this amount, and we will pay it within 90 days. I said, that's fine.
Okay.
But if the commission said, no, you pay it in 30 days, I will pay in 30 days. That's no problem.
Who is your new consultant?
Mr. Forsyth was.
Oh, okay.
When we were filing those papers.
Okay. Okay. So you do recall filing some papers and deficiencies and exchanges with staff?
Yes.
Okay. And you do remember offering to pay the $9,000 within 90 days?
Yes.
Okay. And today you're in a position to offer to pay that $9,000 within 30 days of today?
Right now, I'm in the
15th,
position.
so by June 15th?
Right now, I'm in the position, yes.
Okay. Has anything fundamentally changed in the last month that would allow you to be in that position?
Yes.
What is that, sir?
I'm a part owner in a radio station in California,
Okay.
and which I started about 2 months in February, and it's doing really well.
Okay.
That is the reason to change in my financial
In
situation.
your financial status. Okay. Very good, sir.
Yeah.
Speaking of financing, there were some tangible benefits that flowed from your the purchase of the Salt Spring stations.
Yes.
Are you aware of those
Yes.
tangible benefits? And are you aware of the commitment that you
Yes.
made at the time?
Yes.
Do you know how much that was for?
I think it was around 18,000 approximately total.
Yeah, the total? If you want to give us the total, that's fine.
No, that's what the total was.
Yeah. I think it was
And,
20,112.
21,000.
20,112.
Payable over 7 years.
Exactly. Exactly. And that would make payments on a yearly basis, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And for the yearly basis, whatever the amount is overdue, I will pay within 30 days.
Do you know what that amount is?
It is in my letter stating how much it is. I can total it up and submit that. It's
Okay.
around $3,500, I believe.
It's $2,873 a year.
28, yes.
Okay, and we've received no payment for 2012, 2013?
Like I said, I was going through some financial difficulties, but my situation has changed, and those payments will be done within 30 days.
Had you thought about making those payments prior to arriving here this morning? In a show of goodwill?
No, I did not thought of that.
Okay. So there is 5,746 outstanding as regards tangible benefits. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
And you agree with that?
Yes.
And you're undertaking today to pay that within 30 days?
Yes.
Okay. As regards quarterly reports, sir, you made a commitment at the hearing to provide quarterly reports.
Yes.
You even stated, if I recall, the quarterly reports would be a good way to ensure that you would be compliant going forward.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Would it surprise you to know that you did not file quarterly reports for the quarter between July 2014 and September 2014, October 2014 to December 2014, and January 2015 until March 2015? The only quarterly report that was provided was the one between March and July, right after the hearing. And right after that, once you got the mandatory order in June allowing you to continue broadcasting, those quarterly reports stopped. Does that make sense to you? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
But I had, like I said, every time we were working on the quarterly reports, there were some issues that came up with the staff and everything. And I think it's an oversight on my part. I should have looked at it in more detailed,
But you had committed to be involved in the details, in the minutiae of the operation last January before this commission.
I did.
Because there were other instances prior to that when your conditions of license were far from being fully respected, sir. So how do we know going forward that you'll be able to respect those conditions?
Like I said, every time there was a report was due, Radha always come up with some excuse to. First, she was getting some payment, then I doubled her payment. She goes, now I need help, extra help. I hired Shakti. And then, even in July, I said, well, let's hire Anita to help you out with paperwork. I have emails to prove that. I recommended everything to her, even Bob Simpson. There were some issues at the station until March, which then now I'm changed the total format of the logs that are going to be generating, and with automatic saying how much percentage we played, what we played, and all the audio logs being saved and checked twice a day to make sure everything's running smoothly. And that is why I'm hiring Bob Simpson to make sure he's experienced broadcaster to manage this whole operation. And he's willing and to join the firm to look into this.
Yeah. Mr. Dhillon, would it surprise you to note that on February 23rd you sent a letter to Commission ensuring them that the quarterly reports will be filed within 30 days. February 23rd, 2015, and we're today May 15th, 2015, and those reports have still yet to be filed.
I relied on my staff too much.
Yeah, no, but this is your letter, sir. This is your letter. You signed the letter. You're responsible for sending the letter. You've made many, many undertakings, none of which have been respected, and we don't even have to go back to last year or years prior. This is 2015, February 23rd. You're assuring the Commission that within 30 days the quarterly reports will be deposited, and here we are 3 months later, we still don't have quarterly reports. Any thoughts on that? Any explanation of that? Besides blaming staff?
I think I should have hired in June when I was planning to hire Bob Simpson to look after all my quarterly reports and the looking at day-to-day operation of the radio station. And when the Radha was threatening to resign, I should have let her resign and just brought in Bob Simpson. I should have done it at that time.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't be here.
I know, sir, but ultimately you're responsible.
Yes.
You're the licensee. You hire and fire these people. No one else does. And your track record of hiring and firing is not very impressive thus far. Is there anything else you can provide the Commission? Any assurances? Because even as late as February 13th, that assurance was not respected either.
Well, I relied on too many people and things weren't being done. Now I really have to pay more attention and make sure it's all done.
It's exactly what you told us 15 months ago. Is that correct? Isn't that what you told us 15 months ago?
Yes, but then I did hire Andrew Forsyth to look into all this and to make sure everything's filed on time. And Radha was supposed to provide him all the material so he can work on it. And now I changed my automation system, which will give me more information than what the other system was giving me. And it'll be easier.
More than the system you put back in March?
Yes, better system.
Where everything was being fed right to your home or office in Surrey?
Pardon me?
You had a system installed in March 2014?
Yes.
Do you recall that?
No, that wasn't the automation system. I'm talking about the automation system now.
That wasn't automated back then?
It was automated. It was a different automation system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's briefly discuss this change of ownership situation. Now, currently, Salt Springs is solely and wholly owned, by Satnam Media Group?
Yes.
And you are the owner and controller?
Yes.
Of Satnam?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that in a cover letter for your renewal application dated August 29, 2014, you informed the Commission that the ownership structure would be changing?
Once we get the approval from the Commission, then it will be changing.
Would it be surprised you to note that you mentioned in your letter that, and I quote, the ownership structure of the station had been amended to include Mr. Harmon Gill as a participant owning 49% of the company's shares?
No, that was on Mr. Forsyth's mistake.
Okay.
And I told him, I said, they should be saying that, once the approval from the Commission is granted, then we do it. He goes, no, you can do 49% without he checked. Then I said, no, I don't want to do anything. And Mr. Gill said, we want to 50-50. And so I said, amend everything, make it 50-50 once we get the approval from the Commission.
You asked for that after you had sent the letter to the Commission?
Yes.
and after staff had advised you that an ownership application would be required, seeking authority to modify
Right.
the ownership.
Well, before I relied on Mr. Andrews' submission that, you can change up to 49%.
You relied on Mr. Forsyth's.
Yes.
Okay.
But then...
But you told them at the time that that was improper.
Because that's what I understood. That's
what you, sorry?
That's what I understood, that you cannot sell any
When
shares.
did you understand that, sir?
I said you cannot sell any shares without the Commission's approval. He goes, no, you can do up to 49.
Okay.
I said, well, I'm not sure. And so he filled it out the way he thought was best. And that's why I hired him, because he had more knowledge than me on this. And
how did you know that that was not, that was improper?
because, that's, 20% I think you can transfer, or 10%.
Yeah,
But
based
not,
on what? What is the source of that? Had you read
I read somewhere.
somewhere?
Yes. I don't remember where, but I did read somewhere that you can only transfer 10 or 20%, but you cannot do more than that. Then Mr. Gill said, okay, I'm going to do 50-50.
Where did you recall reading that, sir?
I can't remember right now, but somewhere I read it.
Okay, so that's August 2014. And notwithstanding that you knew this, that you had read it somewhere, you trusted Mr. Forsyth and you sent the letter anyways.
Yes, because
Is
he
that
had
what I
more
understood?
experience than me.
Right. And when do you recall receiving correspondence from the Commission subsequent to that, the filing of that letter in August 2014?
Yes.
Yes? When did you receive that?
It was a month later, and they wanted a shareholders agreement outline the responsibilities. And then Mr. Gill said, okay, I will do 50%, not 49. And I talked to Mr. Andrew again. I said, is that okay? Or somebody has to have 51%. And he said, no, as long as you have a contract, shareholders agreement, that should be okay.
And when did that happen?
That's end of last year sometime. So we signed a shareholders agreement and submitted to the Commission. And Mr. Gill...
When did that happen, sir? I'm curious.
There's a date on the shareholders agreement that when it
Do you have a
happened.
copy of that agreement with you, sir?
I can provide, but it was provided to the Commission.
Okay. So, in August, you sent out and I'll give you the exact date, dated 29 August 2014. That's when it was filed, your initial letter
Yes.
at 49% from Mr. Gill.
Yes.
And would it surprise you to know that you also nominated him as vice president of the board?
But this was not... We were still going to wait until the Commission approved
You waited
it.
for the commission, I know. But,
Yeah.
but did you not name him vice president of the board on 30 July 2014, a month before sending the letter to the commission?
I think this was all done in, like Mr. Forsyth said, okay, what would his position be?
Yes.
He asked me a question. I said he would be a vice president of the corporation.
Right.
So
Of the
that's
board.
how
Of
it
the
came
board.
about. But he's not appointed right now. And right now, still, I'm the sole shareholder director of both corporations.
Yeah. So was that changed? Because it seems to me that on the 13th of July 2014, he was named vice president of the board. Mr. Gill was.
He actually should have been, say, he's proposed. That's what it should have been,
Okay.
instead of saying named. I know there's deficiencies in that application. When I was talking to Mr. Forsyth,
Yes.
I said, it doesn't make any sense. You're saying a couple things here, and, the way Commission looks at, it's not me holding license, it's the company Satnam Media,
Yeah.
and so forth.
When did that discussion happen, sir?
During filing out the deficiencies and stuff.
Give us a date. A quarter.
Oh, last quarter of last year, sometime September
Exactly. September?
last year.
Between September and December 2014, would you agree with
Yes.
that? Yeah, but on 30 July, he was named vice president. 30 July 2014. Mr. Gill was named vice
That's
president of the
when
board.
I think that's when he sent the initial application.
And in the application, you mentioned that the ownership structure had been amended already.
That is wrong.
That's wrong. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It should have been proposed. This
Right.
is,
Okay.
how it's going to look once the application was approved. for
So
share
then you
transfer.
get a letter from the commission explaining to you that you need to seek authority to modify ownership,
Yes.
and that came to you in late September 2014.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you had further discussions with Mr. Forsyth and your partner, Mr. Gill.
Yes.
Okay. And then you decided to resubmit 50-50.
Yes.
And when did that happen?
That is when we signed the shareholders agreement.
Sir,
So
when? I mean, you're handing over half of your company to someone else.
No, I'm not handing over until the commission approves it.
No,
So
I
this is just
understand.
a
I understand.
proposal.
Eventually. But
Yeah.
when did that happen? The shareholders agreement, when was that signed?
That was signed sometime in September, October. I have to check the shareholders agreement and there's.
Have you filed
Do we have a
of
copy?
that? Has that been filed? Not yet, eh? Staff? Do we have a copy of that? On un copie, merci. Okay. So that shareholders agreement was executed on the 20th of October, 2014.
October, yes.
Okay. Had you received approval from the commission for the change of
No,
ownership? No.
no.
Okay. And would it surprise you to know that on 22nd of September 2014, 3 weeks after your initial letter to the Commission, well before receiving a response from the Commission, that it was inappropriate, that you refiled under these new terms, whereby Mr. Gill is 50%, has a 50% voting interest in the Saltspring station.
Please say it again.
Yeah. On 22 September
22 September?
2014, you refiled with the Commission a new proposal,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Stating that Mr. Gill would be 50% owner.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And on the 29th of September, you filed the initial document with the Commission stating that the ownership structure had been amended and Mr. Gill now had 49% of the company's shares and that he was vice president of the board.
I don't recall that.
Okay, no problem. Okay. So you did deposit a shares purchase agreement dated 20 October 2014? You recall that?
October?
Yes, October
Yes,
2014?
2014.
Very well. And that the closing of the purchase would only happen 30 days after the Commission's approval.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Therefore, CFSI is still wholly owned and controlled by Satnam Media,
That is right.
and you control 100% of that company.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd like to make another comment.
Sure.
Mr. Gill, if the Commission allows, is proposing to buy 90% of Saltspring Island.
9-0?
9-0.
Okay. When did that happen?
No. I mean, if the Commission allows, he can refile the application. If the Commission say, okay, we will look into this. If he's allowed to refile the purchase application, share transfer agreement,
Okay.
he's willing to go at 90%.
So do you wish to withdraw the filing and refile at 90%?
If the Commission allows.
Well, you'll only know after you filed.
if we're allowed to file, then we will file within a week.
Okay.
And if the Commission accepts it, I'm willing to divest.
Oh. Well, that's interesting. And therefore you'll no longer be responsible for running the station?
I will be his partner. I will be running with him. There will be more people managing it than one person.
And you mentioned in your letter as regards the change in control, or lack thereof, that Mr. Gill would be injecting operational cash flow.
Yes.
To allow you to meet your commitments.
Yes.
Okay. Given that you are now in a healthier financial situation after your investment in California, do you still need that cash flow from Mr. Gill?
Yes. For the last 2 years, what we have discovered in Saltspring is very trained. There's no way you can have the FM 107.9 cannot cover the whole island. And we tried having a different tower sites so we can cover the whole island on one frequency, and it wasn't possible. So then we decided, with talking to the engineers, about putting an AM tower instead of the FM. And that's going to require land and a lot of capital to get the AM tower in. And that's why we can now invest and get that AM tower if the Commission will allow after that.
We're mixing up a awful lot of issues here, Mr. Dhillon. I know we have Mr. Gill on the line. Do we have Mr. Gill on the line?
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we just maybe get Mr. Gill's perspective, if that's possible? Mr. Gill, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
Hi.
great. So we've had a couple of surprises this morning. Where are you at as regards the purchase of this property?
Right now, Dave has all the details. Right now, I'm just involved in the funding, but right now in the purchase of the property.
Okay, now, are you in the process of purchasing the property?
The property or the frequency?
The frequency, I'm sorry. When I speak of property, I'm talking about the frequency.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, I am.
You are? And you would purchase 90%?
50% right now, and 90% if it's allowed.
Okay, so have you already purchased 50%?
No. My funding is ready. But I haven't actually completed the sale yet, no.
When you say you're involved in the funding of the station, how are you involved in the funding of the station?
Well, I have funds ready to purchase 50% of the station, if it's allowed.
Okay, and have you, none of those funds have been injected in the station thus far?
Well, I'm not sure if they have, but Dave would know about that.
Who would know about that, sir?
Dave?
Dave?
Yeah.
Mr. Dhillon?
Dhillon? Yeah, Mr. Dhillon.
But isn't it your money, sir? Don't you know if that money is...
Well, I'm investing.
Okay, have you already invested some money?
Well, yes, I have.
You have. And how much money have you invested, sir?
$150,000.
$150,000?
Yeah.
And when did that happen, sir?
November 2014.
November 2014?
Yeah, well, late last year, early this year.
Okay. So somewhere between November 2014 and February 2015, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you transferred $150,000 to Mr. Dhillon, and in exchange for that, you got what, sir?
Well, I got a verbal agreement. Well, I've known Mr. Dhillon for over 15, 20 years, almost 20 years now.
Yes.
So I don't have any trust issues with him. So
you don't have any what with him? Sorry.
I don't have any reason to doubt him.
Yes.
So when he needed investment, he came to me with an opportunity. I acted on it because I was out of a job at that moment as well.
Yeah, but speak to us the nature of that opportunity, sir. How do you see that opportunity?
Well, it's an investment. I used to work at a Radio India broadcasting from when I was 14 up until I was 24.
Right, but do you understand that you're...
Now that shut down, so...
Yeah.
well, I was looking to invest, so Mr. Dhillon contacted me, and we went up from there.
And what's the nature of that agreement? You're investing $150,000 for what? For 50% of the company?
Yeah.
Okay. And you did your due diligence on the company, I'm sure? On the broadcasting entity?
Well, yes.
Yeah. And do you realize there are almost no revenues?
Well, yeah, that's usually with startup businesses. I understand the risk I'm taking.
And is there a plan for that investment to bear some fruit? Is there some kind of business plan behind that investment?
Well, once I get more involved into this, I will be, I'll hire a professional team. Right now, I'm relying on Mr. Dhillon.
Okay. Okay. And is that a down payment, that $150,000, or is that the complete payment for 50% of the company?
It's complete payment.
Complete payment, okay. And it's also come to our attention that you may be interested in buying 90% of the company?
Yes.
Okay. And have you as yet paid for that additional 40%?
No.
No?
Just discussing.
Just discussing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a Canadian citizen, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And do you have any other radio interests currently?
Currently, no.
In Canada or the U.S.?
Well, no. I don't. My family might.
Okay. Your family has
Yeah.
radio properties in the U.S.?
Well, my dad used to run a radio station, 1600 AM. So I'm not sure what his...
1600 AM? Is
Yeah,
that
1600.
KRPI?
I'm not really sure. They just recently shut down.
Where is that station broadcasting from, sir?
Blaine? I don't know. He doesn't own it. We used to leave.
Okay. Do you have any guarantees subsequent to your $150,000 payment?
Pardon me?
Do you have anything to guaranteeing
Well,
the $150,000 you gave Mr. Dhillon? Is there a loan agreement? Is there a shareholders agreement? Is there something?
Yeah, I can prove it if I have to.
Well, how would you be able to prove that, sir?
Well, I've transferred funds, but I can get paperwork.
No, I understand you've transferred the funds,
Yeah.
but have you also got a document, a shareholders agreement?
Yes, I do.
You do, and that has been duly signed by yourself and Mr. Dhillon,
Yeah.
transferring 50% of the shares to you
Upon approval, yes.
upon approval.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a copy of that? Do you have a copy of that document, sir?
He's talking about the shareholders agreement.
Oh, that's the shareholders
Yeah.
agreement. Okay. Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Dill. Stay on the line. No? Yeah. So let's take a couple of minutes, Mr. Dill.
We'll take a break till 11:15.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alors, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur le Vice-président.
Order, please, Mr. Vice Chair.
So, Mr. Gill, you're still on the line?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, so I have your shareholders agreement here.
Yeah.
Would you be surprised to know that upon payment of $100,000, the shares would be transferred to you?
Yeah.
Does that sound like your agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. And would it be correct to say that just a few moments ago you told us that the purchase price was $150,000?
Yeah.
And in the agreement we have $100,000. Can you explain the discrepancy?
Well, I'm just between me and Mr. Dhillon that we agreed on the price.
Yeah. Is that like a cash payment on the side?
Check.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Check.
Yes. The $50,000. Where is that, sir?
Well, I still have to make some type of payment, but I have transferred funds with him as soon as it became available to me.
Okay. Is there someone else by the phone with you, Mr.
No.
Mr. Gill? You're not
No,
conversing.
I'm at home though.
You're not conversing with someone between questions?
No.
Thought I heard a voice there.
I called my mom.
You're okay. And your family, your father is involved with, or is the owner of Radio India? Is that correct, sir?
Was.
Was? Okay.
Yeah.
He no longer is?
Well, CRTC shut it down about 5 months ago.
Oh, okay. Okay. So as we speak, you do have the shares, do you not, sir?
Well, yes, I have $100,000 worth of shares.
Okay. And what is that? 50% of the shares?
Yes, 50%.
Okay. Okay, sir.
I got 150,000 maybe for extra shares. I guess the conversation I had with Mr. Dhillon a few months ago. The number just in my head was 150,000.
I'm sorry, you were going to pay $150,000 for the shares?
In my head, the number was 150,000.
Oh, okay, but on paper it was 100.
Increased shares. We were talking for later dates.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, sir. Thank you, sir. I just want to finish up with Mr. Dhillon. You can stay on the line, Mr. Gill, if you would, please.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So, Mr. Dhillon, it seems that you've sold 50% of your shares to Mr. Gill, and you've received $150,000 for those shares?
Well, whenever I needed some funds, he would transfer some funds.
Right.
It was not like at one time he just transferred 150,000.
Okay.
And what we had discussed was originally 50% of shares would be transferred once the approval was granted for $100,000. And then we had a discussion that he was willing to take 90%, and we have not figured out the exact price on it. But since then and until last month, he had transferred some more funds to me.
Yeah,
to
but
pay
your
some
shareholders' agreement states that once the funds are transferred, he would acquire 50% of the shares.
Well, these funds will be used towards the shareholder agreement once these approved by the Commission.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I understand. Okay. So, and now the total that you've received thus far is how much, Mr. Dhillon?
It's close to 150.
Close to 150. Okay. And that all came in the form of a check?
Yes, most of the checks
and
from Mr. Gill's account.
And in exchange for that, he's going to get 50% of the Class A voting shares?
He will, yes.
Okay. But that hasn't happened yet?
No, it hasn't happened yet.
Notwithstanding the agreement that you signed with Mr. Gill?
No, this agreement was on conditions upon approval from the Commission.
Okay. Okay.
Say, for example, a Commission does not approve this transfer, I will owe him $150,000.
Right.
Even, when I bought this radio station, I had to go out and get a $250,000 loan at 10% against my dad's house to buy this radio station. And I got documents I can prove that.
Okay. Just briefly, Mr. Dhillon. Oh, just to close up, actually, you mentioned that you were experiencing difficult financial situation for Salt Spring.
Yes.
Okay, and that was part of the reasoning for your non-compliance?
Yes.
And you mentioned that you were going forward that would no longer be an issue because somehow Salt Springs' revenues would increase exponentially over the next few months?
When I'm saying going forward, I have other source of income now, also from my California stations,
right,
which I can inject the money from there into the station that pays on a regular basis, and which I did last month.
Yeah, but that California, that's new. Those are new monies, though, that we didn't have that under the initial deficiencies. But going forward, is there a plan? Because Salt Spring, you seem to be having a hard time with Salt Springs. The revenues aren't there.
Well,
you're losing money constantly. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Notwithstanding that, you still want to maintain the station and keep on feeding it. Is there a plan going forward for Salt Spring?
The plan is this: we have to change the repeater from FM 102.1 to AM. That way, we'll get a bigger coverage, and we'll cover the whole island, and we'll cover most likely all the ferry terminals, and people will advertise with us. I have spoken to different clients, and we had advertising people come from Duncan, from Nanaimo, from Victoria, who used to advertise with us.
But from Nanaimo and Victoria, that are willing to advertise on Salt Spring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's no car dealership on Saltspring Island. We are a car dealership advertising from Victoria.
And do you have some kind of written documentation to that effect?
Yes.
Have they committed?
They were on the station.
Yes.
See, when new radio station starts, everybody wants to support. After 1 year, 2 years, they realize, we're not getting any revenue from them. And then they realize, well, the coverage isn't very good. They stopped.
Now, are you telling us, sir, that you do not cover, your coverage as it is right now does not cover the island?
Not at all, properly. There's a lot of dead spots that does not cover. If you're driving, say, from the Ganges to Fulford Ferry, you're listening to 107.9, just 5 minutes out of the town, your frequency stops. You cannot hear it. And then you have to remember, 102.1, I have to turn it on. And then other frequencies also bombard with that.
Right. How many people live on Salt Spring, Mr.
Approximately 10,000.
10,000, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I recall last year, yeah.
Yeah.
That number hasn't changed?
No.
Yeah. Okay. And what are your, you seem to have interesting revenue projections for those 10,000.
Well, if I look at Mr. Brooks' sales in the second year, he was doing 100,000.
Right.
And, but, when new businesses start, radio stations start, people want to advertise. Mm-hmm. And they come aboard right away.
Because they don't know that the signal is not very good?
Exactly. Then they start pulling back.
Okay. They pull back. But your service area is the island, sir, right? You agree with us?
It is the island, yes.
Your service area is not the mainland?
It's not the mainland, no.
Okay. And with this new AM signal, would you be able to serve the mainland?
I would be able to serve the island better than what I'm serving right now.
And people from Victoria and Nanaimo would advertise to the people on the island?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, before, when Mr. Brooks started it, a lot of people from that area used to advertise with us, with that station.
So maybe we can close up, sir. Would you please explain to the Commission, you're asking for a short-term renewal on Salt Spring?
Yes.
Given all the non-compliance that we've gone through over the last hour and a half?
I would appreciate that. Will give me a chance to prove again. Because, originally when I got the information and everything, I did try to put a lot of stuff in place that I thought, okay, Radha will do this, Mr. Andrew Forsyth will do this, and I just took a back seat. I said, okay, they're handling it, I will let them handle it. But now I put a new automation system which is much better, sounds much better, and the quality of the signal is much better. You can, Mr. Dave Gordon is online, you can ask him. He lives on the island.
Can you tell the Commission why the Commission should not order a mandatory order requiring you, the licensee, to comply with the regulations?
No, the Commission can order, and I will abide by them.
Okay. You would not object to a mandatory order?
No.
You think that's the appropriate response from the Commission?
If the Commission give me 7-year renewal license, and
how many years?
It's normally 7 years.
Okay.
And they put mandatory orders in place, say a certain period of time, and I will need that AM transmitter in order to be successful.
Can you explain to us, Mr. Dhillon, why the Commission would not consider suspension of your license, non-renewal of your license, or revocation of your license?
Well, I have spent a lot of money on this island, and I took loans from everywhere to keep this radio station running for the last 2 years, and I'm not running away from my obligations. I will put more money into it, even if I have to put 200,000, 300,000, I will put that money in, get that AM, cover the island, show the island that we can still be a successful radio station. Because I will not run away from my obligations.
Are there do you have any interveners here with you today, sir, in support of your application?
Mr. Gordon is online.
Okay.
He was my previous manager, but he can tell you exactly how much hard time he had from people who were working there trying to bring me down.
Okay.
See, the island never accepted my buying the radio station from day one.
And they won't going forward either.
Well, I think if I stick there long enough, they will. They will know that I'm not going to run away. I'm sorry. I've been running CIHS for 7 years at loss. And not a one complaint came from CIHS except Radha. That shows something that I must be doing something good that nobody complained. And when I wanted to get the power increase, I brought in a lot of positive interventions. Unfortunately, the Industry Canada approved my 50,000 watt power, but somehow the Commission didn't feel that there was a need for that much power for the radio station. We can discuss that at CIHS.
Okay. I think my colleagues may have some questions for you, sir.
So, Mr. Dhillon, I can't help but be struck by the level of your preparation for this this hearing to conclude that I don't get the impression that you understand how serious the situation is. That this is a show cause hearing that could result in the revocation of your license. On a number of occasions, the burden's on you to prove that the various remedies available to the Commission aren't put into place, including revocation, which would be the ultimate penalty in this case. On a number of questions asked by the Vice Chair, you've answered, oh, you have documents to that effect, but you've brought none of them with you at the hearing. And now you've agreed to send them by 5 p.m. tomorrow. I repeat, the burden's on you. We won't be running after those documents. If you do not send them, we will not consider anything sent after 5 p.m. Ottawa time tomorrow. Do you understand that?
I understand.
I don't think I have any further questions at this stage. Mr. Vice Chair? Yes.
Could you mentioned Bob Simpson earlier. What are his, I'm not familiar with him, so what are his credentials?
He worked with quite a few different radio stations, for the last 25 years. And he was one of the first person to work with the radio station as a general manager for 3 years. And he's working on the island at a different radio station right now. And he worked with Fraser Valley radio station in Abbotsford. So he's quite familiar with the system and obligations.
I just kind of put it to you. I mean, you talked about wanting your AM repeater so that, and then you would be getting revenue from the Nanaimo and Duncan. I'm not sure how well that would go over with the operators in Nanaimo and Duncan, for starters. But have you considered, very often with radios adjacent to other communities that might have a larger commercial base than that's necessarily available on Salt Spring at Ganges, that when you take advertising from outside of the community, it actually erodes your advertising inside the community because you're not actually supporting the local business community, right? You're getting people from Duncan to advertise, which has more of, Duncan would have more of the discount stores and that sort of stuff, and so would Nanaimo, to tell people to leave Ganges Island and take their money out of that little microeconomy and take it elsewhere. And typically operators avoid doing that because it makes them unpopular. And people want a local radio station that supports local listeners and businesses. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you, but there are some businesses that are not on the island. For example, there's no car dealership on the island. And there's no, like a money mart. People have to go to Duncan to get the checks cashed. So these kind of businesses that are not on the island but want to advertise, because a lot of people go out, buy cars, and sometimes they bring in cars to the island to display so they can attract more customers. So those
how far would that an AM repeater reach to the east? Wouldn't it make your signal much more accessible to the lower mainland?
We're not asking for 10,000 watt or anything. We're just asking for 1,000 watt that will cover the immediate areas.
Would you be able to listen to the station at your office in Surrey?
I will have to do the on-air testing to find out, but the engineering shows if we go with 1,000 watt, we don't need that much land, which will be less expensive to build. And so, our main target is being one of the island station, not the mainland station.
How much of the island? I mean, as far as I can recall, there's about 10,000 people live on Salt Spring.
Right.
And most of them, I think, and you can inform me more fully, live around Ganges area. So I'm just trying to, it's fairly spread out, I know that, but how much of the population aren't you reaching right now? And I'd be aware that, the part of the population that you're not reaching certainly has access to radio services. So what percentage of the population are you not reaching right now?
Well, in the last application regarding the repeater, if we look at that, it was a considerable amount of people that are living outside of Ganges that were not getting the signal.
Yeah, a considerable amount, but bigger than a bread box, smaller than a house. I mean, give me some ideas. Is it like 10% of the population? 5, 20?
It is more like 30, 40%.
30 or 40% of the island?
People who are living near Vesuvius area, north side, and the south end, they are not receiving it.
So which side of the...
Like 3, even 2 kilometers.
Which side of the mountain?
North of the mountain and the south of the mountain. Even Radha cannot pick the 107.9 at her house. She lives in Ganges.
Okay.
Because the FM only travels straight, and all the people who are living in Ganges below the mountain are not getting it.
Where's your transmitter located?
It's on a mountain, Mount Bruce, Mount Vulture?
Bruce is the biggest one. isn't it?
Mount Vulture.
Okay.
So if Radha is in Ganges, near Ganges,
Yeah.
and she said she cannot pick up the signal there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think that ends phase one. I ask you to step away from the table while we do phase two. Madam Secretary, do we have to take a break before doing
Nope,
phase two?
they're
We're ready
ready.
to go? Okay, good.
They are ready. We're just going to
thank
connect
you,
them.
Mr. Dhillon.
Perfect. We will now proceed to phase two, in which interveners appear in the order set out in the agenda.
No, sorry. You can step away from the table
Okay.
and turn off your mic, please, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now proceed to phase two, in which interveners appear in the order set out in the agenda to present their interventions. We will now hear the presentation of Ms. Radha Fournier, who is appearing by video conference from Victoria, BC. Ms. Fournier is accompanied by Mr. Richard Moses. Ms. Fournier, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. You may begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Jean-Pierre Blais, Vice Chairman Tom Pentefuntas, Vice Chairman Peter Menzies, and the CRTC staff. My name is Radha Fournier. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the CRTC for allowing me to present this intervention, and especially to the CRTC staff for all their support and help. Wanted to be here today to give an overview of my experience of working for the licensee, Mr. Sukhdev Dhillon, and answer any questions you may have. I have filed 2 interventions prior to today's hearing, one for Wetaskiwin and one for Saltspring Island. Those interventions are on file with the Commission. In those interventions, I've provided background information with many details. I understand the CRTC regulates radio stations based on broadcasting rules and does not necessarily concern itself with how a radio station is operated or managed. I also understand that your decisions have to be based on points of regulatory law, but part of the failure of this station has to do with the business practices, which ultimately created the non-compliances in many instances. I will tell you that I alone was responsible for assuming the compliance of the radio station in the absence of any understanding or direction from the licensee. It was through the information provided by our broadcast consultant that I was able to manage the compliance end of the business. If attention was not paid, it was due to the failure of communication by the licensee. Much that I'll be sharing today will have to do with the day-to-day business operations. In opening, I would like to say that from my viewpoint, there is no doubt that the CRTC should revoke the license from Mr. Dhillon on the basis of many non-compliances, including off-air time, as well as his failure to provide a viable radio station to the community of Salt Spring Island. I was interim station manager at CFSI from May 2014 to March 2015, office manager from November 2013 to April 2014, and I've been a programmer since November 2009. I also was the one-person show in running CFSI from May 2014 through March 2015 with the help of a team of 3 to 4 paid programming staff. Richard Moses was program director and my right-hand man. I basically performed all the function that a radio station requires to run. Mr. Dhillon was an absentee owner and provided little to no direction. Meetings were far and few between, with no more than 4 to 5 face-to-face meetings with Mr. Dhillon this past year. When I would need direction or response to an issue, I was more often than not met with a lack of response to phone calls and emails. Mr. Dhillon treated us as inconsequential. We had a series of equipment failures, and I would repeatedly ask for replacement equipment. Mr. Dhillon would say he would bring a replacement next time he was on island. Then he would show up without equipment. Coming to the island appeared to be a burden to Mr. Dhillon. Mr. Dhillon had absolutely no vision nor foresight for the station. He could not provide a mission statement nor provide any idea of how he perceived the station's role in the community. He has a license, but he doesn't know what to do with the license. Mr. Dhillon could not answer this question when asked repeatedly. Why did he buy the station? Mr. Dhillon did not appear to have any kind of sincere interest in the station nor in the community. Mr. Dhillon's way of operating his business is to simply not pay the bills until the services are disconnected. An example being CFSI FM1 being off-air twice for a total of 6 months over the course of my being a paid employee. To the best of my knowledge, there were no reports submitted to the CRTC nor Industry Canada to notify them of this lack of service. In my original intervention, there is a well-documented sampling of disconnected services due to non-payment of bills, including the internet streaming service, which provided services to many parts of the island where there was no signal. These disconnected services, in turn, took the radio station off air. Non-payment of vendors and bounced checks further tarnished CFSI's reputation within the island community as well as the broadcast community. The payroll checks were consistently late, at times up to 3 months late. Further, the payroll checks would often bounce, especially if we didn't deposit them immediately. Mr. Dhillon was unconcerned about the state of the equipment. When we had equipment failures, Mr. Dhillon would always find the cheapest replacements. Case in point were the headsets. Mr. Dhillon would buy the cheapest headsets, which would fail within a couple months, so that we were always using compromised headsets until I bought 2 high-quality headsets, which lasted the duration of my tenure as station manager. Another case in point was failed logger machine, which prompted the last CRTC call to hearing last year. Mr. Dhillon neglected the warnings of then station manager Dave Gordon about the failed computer. Then Mr. Dhillon took the equipment without replacing it in a timely manner. During my time as station manager, the logger machine also failed. Mr. Dhillon took the machine to Surrey in Vancouver, and a replacement was never provided at the station. I was therefore unable to reconcile the logger with the paper electronic records or logs. Mr. Dhillon has a reputation, and I have experienced firsthand this perpetual telling of non-truths. Of key interest to the Commission is Mr. Dhillon's bold-faced lie at the Radio India hearing on October 15, 2014, held in Gatineau. Quote, Commissioner Menzies, thank you, Mr. Dhillon. Could you just confirm for us, please, that you do not have a business association with Radio India at this time? Mr. Dhillon, I do not. I do not have any business relationship with Radio India, unquote. I was instructed repeatedly by Mr. Dhillon to supply a monthly accounting of bills and payroll to Mr. Maninder Gill's office at Radio India in order for Mr. Dhillon to obtain a check from Mr. Gill to pay bills and payroll. To update the Commission, since the closing of interventions, I was approached by Radio India to run CFSI with no need to interface with Mr. Dhillon, and Radio India would pay all bills and payroll. I turned this down as I believe it would not be a CRTC-approved business deal, nor would it fly on the island, as Mr. Dhillon would still be owner. At this point, I'd like to ask the Commission's permission to introduce new evidence to the hearing, which is a Driftwood article from the local paper published on the 1st of April. Do I have permission?
Well, it was published on the 1st of April, and if I'm not mistaken, the intervention period was the 3rd of April or something like that. Why didn't you include it in your original intervention?
What was was it the 3rd of April? What was the cutoff date?
Even later. It was the 10th of April.
You know, my apologies. It was after I had submitted my intervention, which I believe I did on the 31st of March.
Right. Okay, well, we'll take it under advisement, but go ahead and we will consider whether in the end we accept it or not.
Okay. So the local newspaper published an article about the complete walkout of staff from the radio station. Mr. Dhillon says, quote, if the CRTC rules we must make payments, we will make them at that time, unquote. The irony of this statement is that he's being called by the Commission because he did not make payments as mandated. It seems to me it is not a matter of if. The second part I would like to call out is, quote, he hired Anita Mehta as the new station manager and that she would have full signing authority, unquote. This is a falsehood. Ms. Mehta has no background in radio and was only going into the station to help a friend. Ms. Mehta was not paid for her time. Mr. Dhillon was unwilling to give the local management control to run the station independent of him. It was apparent if the station were to succeed, we needed to have revenue. In November 2014, Mr. Richard Moses found a strong candidate for sales manager to work solely on commission. The gentleman has a good reputation in the local business community and a solid history of media sales in film in a similar sized and demographic community, and he's a small business owner. Richard and I interviewed him, and then Mr. Dhillon and I interviewed him. A contract was drawn up, but Mr. Dhillon never moved on the contract nor negotiated. I could not and would not hire him without the ability to have signature authority to pay his commissions in a timely manner. With the news of this impending CRTC hearing, the March BC Hydro Service disconnection, which took down both towers, and my resignation, there was a complete walkout at the station at the end of March 2015. In summary, it's very clear to me, based on the number of interventions on Saltspring Island Radio Corporation's CRTC applications, that there is indeed a passion to have radio here on Saltspring Island. It's also clear to me the community is unwilling to embrace Mr. Dhillon as the owner. In summary, it is my humble opinion that the Commission should revoke the radio license from Mr. Dhillon on the basis of non-compliance and failure to operate a license with business practices that ensure the sustainability of the operation. I would like to suggest the Commission allow the frequency to be available to others on Saltspring Island to provide a truly local service. Thank you very much to the Commission for allowing me the opportunity to present this intervention, and I'm prepared to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fournier. So I will have a few questions for you. So first of all, I just you mentioned a bit of your history in the radio business. So could you elaborate a little bit more of how long you've been in the radio business?
I have been in the radio business really starting in November 2009 as a broadcaster, as a DJ. Prior to that, I had no radio experience.
Right, and you were mostly an on-air personality, or were you also at that time involved in the regulatory side? Not the regulatory side in the sense that with regulatory obligations or the inputs into regulatory obligations. So when did you get? So when I was originally volunteered as a programmer, we did have to maintain logs that tracked whether it was Category 2, what the category was of the music and all of that. So at that length, that was my involvement. But not until when I was hired November 2013 that I actually got involved in helping out with the audits and the more regulatory side of things. Right. So I think it could be said that you did not leave in very good terms with Mr. Dhillon. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It could be argued that your evidence here might be motivated by, and forgive me for the words, but more of a personal vendetta. What do you say to that? You could view it that way, but in reality, I think the 14 interventions speak to how the island feels, and I feel like I'm the voice for the island. So your perspective here is from a former employee or from somebody who wants other outcomes?
As a former employee, I guess. I'm not sure what you're asking.
You obviously live on the island?
Yes, I do.
And you benefit from the service that the station could offer, don't you? Do you not?
Yes.
So don't you also have a perspective as somebody who would be a listener to the station?
Without a doubt. Yes, without a doubt.
Okay. So the Commission issued a mandatory order on the 20th of June 2015, and, sorry, not 15, 14.
Yes.
And you left in 22nd March 2015. So you were there for a period of time when the mandatory order was in place. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
So you were able to observe the day-to-day operations of the station. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So from your observations, what systems were in place beyond what you've detailed in your presentation today to ensure that logs and logger tapes were properly maintained?
So the logs for the live programmers, they were required, and they were trained as well by myself, and required to maintain paper logs of what they broadcast. And then the computer system that we had that ran the auto DJ basically it was a SQL database system, and so it kept an electronic log of what we were airing. And so between those two, when we ran the quarterly reports, I would integrate those into a single spreadsheet, taking what the programmers had created and weaving them in. And then actually, if there were questions, I would have to follow up with the programmers and organize it into a format that would meet the CRTC requirements.
So from your perspective, from your responsibilities, all the work was being done. Is that correct?
From my perspective, it was.
So how do you
to the best of my knowledge.
Right. And so how do you explain the fact that we may not have been receiving the information at our end?
That I don't know, because when I finished my assembly of the reports, I would forward those to Mr. Dhillon and to Mr. Forsyth, and so once they left my care, they were taken at that point and submitted. And I also did not receive the communications from the commission that were sent to Mr. Dhillon. They were never forwarded to me, so I was never brought up to speed on a lot of stuff that was happening between him and the CRTC.
Okay. So again, during that period of time, what did you observe with respect to the preparation of self-assessment reports or musical lists?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, Mr. Dhillon was under obligations to provide self-assessment reports and musical lists as well during that period, and I was wondering what, if anything, you observed in the preparation of those documents.
I don't think I observed anything, unless I'm misunderstanding.
No, that's possible that you weren't involved in that at all. I just, if you don't recall being involved in them, that's probably because you weren't involved.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And nor were you involved, I take it, with the preparation of annual returns?
No.
And how about CCD payments?
No.
Now, you mentioned the fact that Mr. Dhillon was physically absent. How often, in your view, was Mr. Dhillon physically present at the station when you were?
He was. I would say, and I put it in the intervention I just did. He was face-to-face meetings where he and I actually sat down and we discussed. Was probably 4 to 5 times in the past 12 months. When it came to payroll, he would come on the ferry. The last 2 times I had to go down to the ferry terminal and meet him to get the checks, and then he would get on the same ferry that he came in on. And as far as phone meetings, it was, all I can say, extremely frustrating, because often I couldn't even reach him.
So you were obviously not having daily meetings, is that correct?
No.
Whether in person or by phone or email or anything like that?
No.
Weekly?
Via email, I would say weekly, yes. Email exchanges saying, just asking for guidance or explaining an issue that had come up, or, just general correspondence.
Right. And you were initiating those contacts? Is that the case?
Yes.
But
yes.
Would Mr. Dhillon contact you by phone from time to time to get a status report of what was happening at the station?
No.
So you mentioned in your presentation that some folks on the island listen to the station not so much over the air but through internet streaming. Is there a significant number of the members of the population on the island that listen to the station through internet streaming? What would be your assessment?
I can't give you a percentage. I did go online and get some statistics. Online statistics of listenership, and in that we would, in the daytime, we'd average from 2 to maybe 10 online streaming listeners. I would say average 4 to 5.
Right. So despite the signal issue, you think that the internet streaming wasn't an adequate way to add to the listenership?
I think it was extremely important to add to it, because what we found is we had people who would tune into specific programs. And when the internet would go down or the stream was disconnected, more often than not for non-payment, or actually it's not even true, it was always for non-payment, we would get emails from listeners asking, when's the stream going to come back? Can we get the stream back up?
Right. Now, you're recommending that we revoke this license. Commission always has seen as radio as a public service. So I'd like to have your perspective as a listener and as a resident of the island, and with knowledge of how people might react to that. That would mean the loss of a service. Do you have anything to add to the Commission's evaluation of that impact on the community, were we to revoke the license?
Yes, I do. I have been, just being in the role of station manager, I've had a lot of contact with community business members and service members. And many of them are very keen on the radio station. A very key person in the community wants to embrace the station, but he feels he cannot do it while Mr. Dhillon owns the station because of past business practices. And I feel very strongly that if the license was revoked and then somebody could reapply, I believe the community would embrace it,
even though they may have a temporary loss of a service.
Yes, yeah, and the station does indeed provide a service to the island, and again, that's very clear to me with being in the community and talking with members of the community as well as listeners, that it definitely provides a service to the community.
Okay. I believe those are my questions. Do you have anything to add? Just as a final thought, before we move on?
I don't know. Can I make a comment about the Bob Simpson thing? Because Bob's an acquaintance to Richard Moses, and Richard's been in contact with Bob about the discussions. And
well, it's your intervention, so please, if you want to add something to the record, this is your occasion.
That's fine. Yeah, so to my knowledge, I just got an email from Bob Simpson, and he says that, let me read it here. He says, there has been no follow-up by Dave Dhillon to discuss said conditions or response to verbally or in writing that I have, and he said, to this fact that I do not feel that I have been hired.
Okay, I understood.
And I can forward that to the Commission.
Right, except that's a little distant from the person who actually has direct knowledge of it. So we'll have to put that into weigh that in the balance going forward when we consider this matter. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having intervened in the hearing. Thank you. Madame la Secrétaire, we'll now go to the third and last phase of the hearing, of this item.
Perfect. I would ask Mr. Dhillon to come back to the table. Mr. Dhillon, you can reply to all interventions submitted on your item. You have 10 minutes to do so.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, Mr. Blatt, and Vice Chairman Tom Pantefontes, and Peter McKenzie, Vice Chairman of Telecommunication, and Commission staff to respond to the intervention posted in the public file with regards to CFSI FM. I will begin by responding to the comments put forward by interventions who opposed the manner in which the station is being run, specifically the interventions Radha Fournier and Mr. Richard Moses. Intervention number 221-658 and 221-713. These interveners all have been with the station on one role or the another, all as volunteer programmers, as a co-founder and program director of the inception of CFSI FM. Collectively, they are a disgruntled bunch who paint a picture of a wonderful concept that was taken away from them by a hostile takeover. That said, there does not seem to be much love for the former licensee either, who is described as a hapless owner. In fact, the previous management team is given short praise, and I quote, the first owners, first hiring, then firing one of the most competent radio men in business and writing him himself, co-founder, program and director, to run the station single-handedly. And so, just to bring to your attention, the intervener speak of himself as a victim in this. This intervention raises several issues. There was no hostile takeover. The Commission approved the corporate agreement between the two broadcasters in public process. The previous licensee made a business decision to sell to my company, as was his right. He did have the opportunity to offer to the station co-founder and volunteer. This was not his choice. It appears this group of interveners have been upset about the management of CFSI since very near the beginning of the existence. They are frustrated and that the control of the station rests with someone other than themselves. They did not raise the funds to acquire the station, and they feel shout out. One of the interveners claimed to speak on behalf of all of the volunteers and former staff members. We is used in the interventions. It could be construed to mean there is a unanimous desire to see Satnam Broadcasting ousted Saltspring Island. Another intervener who has all along with co-founder of the station created a coalition with the intent to operate the station, asked the Commission to choose the best candidate to run CFSI. The Commission did do this in the competitive hearing in 2007 and granted the license to the previous owner. He in turn, auspicious of the Commission's public process, gave me the mandate to carry the license forward. I would like to quote from Dave Gordon's letter. Recently, in the aftermath of the walkout, I was delighted to hear CFSI back up and running at full strength and honoring its licensing commitment. I also think that Sukhdev Dhillon was not dealt with honestly by the former owner, who quickly took the money from the deal and then disappeared from the island. No support or guidance was given to Satnam Media, and they were left with a depleted and inexperienced staff. In my own experience, while I was at the CFSI, the well-entrenched and self-entitled hosts were of little help, thinking mostly of themselves and their shows. They gave us little help toward the economic reality of the station, even when I was running the things. I urge the members of the CRTC responsible for the reviewing CFSI's license to note the many improvements that Mr. Dhillon has put in place over the last couple of weeks. The station sounds better than it has since 2013. In my opinion, CFSI is viable commercially speaking with the right people in place. I believe that Saltspring Island would embrace a professional sounding station that they could be proud of, not an elitist clique of wannabes. This could be easily accomplished by gathering the right team and improving the signal strength. Yours truly, David Gordon. I would like to quote from Radha's email, which she wrote. Station equipment was being...
Excuse me, Mr. Dhillon. did you file these previously?
No, I just did right now. This
Right.
is interventions that replies.
Right. So you're putting new information on the record at this point. It's not just a reply. You're adding evidence on the record. Could you please advise us as to why you're doing it at this stage, at the third phase of the hearing?
I'm sorry, I was just replying to her interventions.
Yes, but you're adding new evidence to the record by
May I-
emails that are not currently on the record.
May I be allowed to put new evidence?
For what you have to convince us that is the appropriate thing to do. So
Okay.
tell us why.
Because after talking to Dave Gordon and the other people, I have come to find out, and through my emails, that since I took over the station, every now and then someone from the station would pull a plug out, take the wire out.
I'm not looking for an argument. I'm asking you why you were not able to add this evidence on the record in the written process earlier, that you choose to add this evidence on the record of the proceeding at the very last moment in the proceeding. Why weren't you able to do that earlier?
Because I did not believe that Radha would be saying all these things here today. And when I found out that this is what she's going to be accusing me of, I said, okay, these are the things that she told me herself, that the staff is trying to wreck the station up, so that way you have to come here every day. I tried to put the cameras there so I can find out who is doing it. Somebody would try to put the loggers off. I took the second logger to somewhere else so I can have backups.
Okay. So I hear you. We'll take it under advisement. You can continue, but we haven't yet accepted these new documents.
The station equipment was being impacted negatively by existing programmers. This is Radha writing to me. Station equipment was being impacted negatively by the existing programmers, both intentionally and unintentionally, through normal wear and tear. They were our Pacific programmers on staff, as well as Mr. Gordon. Here she's accusing Mr. Gordon of himself wrecking up the station, who intentionally sabotaged equipment to try and get management to purchase new equipment. Suspects are the mixing boards, the old SAM broadcast computer, the computer network, the door locking, among other things. Volunteers meeting with volunteer staff at the beginning of November. The biggest issue with coordinating any volunteer staff meeting was the former station manager, Mr. Dave Gordon, was possessive, who had contacted with Mr. Dhillon. And Mr. Dhillon had asked for meetings and for informal gatherings with staff. Mr. Dave Gordon would only invite selected group to the gatherings, and he would not invite all programming staff. Again, it was the station manager's role to communicate intentions to volunteer staff, not the owner's role. The owner had asked, but results were not delivered. Lock malfunction. The station manager made a very big deal out of the electronic lock to the station malfunctioning. He complained very loudly to the staff, volunteer staff, and the owner wouldn't buy a new lock as the old one was starting to malfunction. The owner, Mr. Dhillon, had asked Mr. Gordon if Mr. Gordon had checked the battery. Mr. Gordon said he did. He had. When Mr. Dhillon came onto the premises and checked the lock himself, he found the problem was the battery needed replacement. Much negative image was created about Mr. Dhillon by Mr. Gordon about this problem. In the end, it was the former station manager who demonstrated an inability to solve problem. When the CRT's quarterly reports were due, Radha would want more money or she threatened to quit. Here's the email written to Andrew in July of 2014. Hi Andrew, I want to let you know I have resigned from Saltspring Island Radio Corporation. You will need to follow up with Sukhdev Dhillon on the quarterly report requirements. It's been great working with you. You're indeed exceptionally knowledgeable and a true pleasure to work with you. I wish you good luck with Saltspring Island Radio, Radha. She did exactly the same, contacting the other hosts. She did exactly the same. Here's the quote regarding Bill Nash, talking to me directly in August 2014. Sukhdev, what the, and she used the F word, is going on? I just heard that Bill is in phone contact and even had a meeting scheduled with Bob Simpson. Bob as general manager and Bill has assistant general manager. All these things you here. And the new operation team will, and you can see the words you used here. and a new operation team will be introduced in June. The management team is revitalized, and I can say that I feel confident that the day-to-day management of the station has the goal of the community and the station prioritized. This team will be headed with Bob Simpson. I'm requesting that I be allowed to replace the repeater 102.1 FM with an AM repeater. I trust this addresses your concerns and ask the Commission to exclude suspension and revocation of the license of CFSI FM in your decision and renew the license and approve the share transfer. I'm glad to answer any of these questions. And in regards to Radha Fournier's regarding the email that I haven't contacted Mr. Simpson. I have text messages and I have emails last 4 days that we've been going back and forth. That's all.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand what relevance is it that your employees, even if you're taking your arguments at face value, that your employees weren't doing the work. Ultimately, you're the owner-operator, and it is your responsibility, is it not?
What their intention was to somehow frustrate me from this business, so I would just leave the station and ask the CRT, and CRTs, I'm giving up. That was their goal from day one. And I tried to hire people locally from the island. They were not experienced. Then finally, in June, as you can see, I was trying to hire Bob Simpson, and she got very upset about that either.
Right.
So I was trying to replace people, replace the equipment, try to put cameras there so I can see who's wrecking up who. I was not even being allowed to do that. So now I have to run this business in a way that within a year you will see the difference in the programming, in the quality of the program, the quality of the sound, and the logs and the requirements, the RAP reports, and everything. I'm hopeful that Mr. Simpson is the person that I should have hired a long time, and he will handle all this.
What do you say to the allegations that you were rarely, if ever, physically on the island, and that you rarely, if ever, initiated contacts to find out how your business was being run?
When I tried to talk to other hosts who she did not get along to find out exactly what was happening, she would either fire them or she would tell them that if you talk to me, then I'm leaving or I'm quitting or we're all going to walk out. Say, for example, this little email right here, it's regarding Mr. Cassidy. She goes, I'm letting you go from the radio station and because you're taking equipment from the station. So, I mean...
She stated in her evidence that you rarely, if ever, showed up at the radio station. Do you dispute that? I remind you, you're under oath.
Yes, I dispute that. I have the ferry tickets. I can show you how many times I have gone. I've gone more than what she said.
I see. And you didn't think that that would be relevant, since this has been her argument all along, to actually bring the evidence here today? You're still using that technique you've used in previous hearings and here today, making statements but showing up without any evidence.
No, I do have the ferry tickets. I collected them all for tax purposes, and I can photocopy and scan them and send them on.
Do you not agree with me that that just the fact that you traveled there doesn't mean you spent tremendous of time there, that you, as she says, took the ferry right back?
A lot of times she was not even at the station. And when I tried to meet other hosts directly, she would get offended. Because I wanted to know, I know how she was dealing, but I wanted to know what other, like a lot of the hosts right now want to come back.
I put it to you that it was your responsibility to run the station, not hers. So,
yes.
And this mandatory order was directed to you, not anyone else. You and your company.
I will make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Well, do you have anything to add, Mr. Dhillon? Because I think we may be at the end of this
Mr. Gordon is online if you'd like to speak to him or anything.
Well, this is a reply phase. It's no longer the part of the hearing where you make your case. We were giving you an opportunity to respond to interveners.
That's all.
Yes. Aren't you struck that there are a lot of listeners from the island that came to your defense?
All the people, the only people who intervene are the ex-hosts, or rather ask personally, please intervene. I have proof of that.
But you made no efforts to have the people that support your position to intervene? Where are they?
Pardon me?
Where are they, those that support you?
They're all the silent community who listen and enjoy the program. They're not people. I mean, if you look at all the people on the island, only 10 people, and who are all the hosts or ex-hosts. That's all they're, complaining. Well, how about the members of the community at large? How about the Island Trust or some other big corporations? Nobody complained.
Okay, thank you. We have no further questions. I remind you that the burden is entirely on you to deliver those additional documents we talked about in Phase 1 by 5 o'clock tomorrow, and we won't be chasing after them. The burden's on you.
Can I be provided with a list end of the hearing?
You can speak to legal counsel once we've adjourned to make sure that you have a complete list of what you promised to deliver. So we will adjourn until 1:30 to hear the third item on the on this oral hearing. Thank you very much.